Nuclear regulators in Japan are criticizing a recent report by the operator of the crippled Fukushima Daiichi plant. Managers of Tokyo Electric Power Company submitted the document last week outlining the safety measures in place at their nuclear facilities. Members of the Nuclear Regulation Authority met in Tokyo to discuss the report. It details the measures Tepco is taking to prevent radioactive water leaks and other problems at Fukushima Daiichi. One authority member called the report unconvincing and expressed doubts about whether the utility would be able to deal with other challenges that may arise in the future. Another member said if there's no problem at the Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant on the Sea of Japan coast, as Tepco says, the utility should reassign more workers from there to Fukushima Daiichi. Tepco managers said in the report they can safely manage 2 reactors at Kashiwazaki Kariwa. They've applied for permission to restart the units. The chairman of the Nuclear Regulation Authority, Shunichi Tanaka, says Tepco should be questioned thoroughly. He plans to hold a meeting with the utility's president soon.
Officials at Japan's Science Ministry have put forward a plan to radically reduce the radioactivity of waste from nuclear plants. They told a panel of experts how they intend to slash the length of time the waste remains dangerous, from tens of thousands of years to hundreds of years. The experts backed the proposal. The plan involves extracting long-lasting radioactive substances from spent nuclear fuel. The officials say that by using neutrons created in particle accelerators, the dangers posed by the waste can be dramatically reduced. They say that if the plan succeeds, it will also cut the required disposal space to about 1/100th of current estimates. Now, the Japanese government is currently planning to bury toxic waste from the nuclear meltdowns in Fukushima deep underground, but it can't settle on a location because of community opposition over safety concerns.
Japan's government was forced to admit this week that the radiation cleanup near the Fukushima nuclear plant is way behind schedule. 3 reactors melted down after the earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Those evacuated hope to be home by next March, but now their return may be years away. Seth Doan went to Fukushima.
Bags filled with radioactive soil line roadways more than 10 miles from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Tens of thousands of workers have been hired to scrape up the top layer of contaminated earth. But this former worker told us it was a futile task. We decontaminate around a house, he told us, but if it rained, more contaminated earth from outside that perimeter would just pour right in. He did not want us to show his face because he feared he would not find work again. You can't see or smell the radiation, he told us. At first, you tend to be careful about keeping your protective gear on, but after a while, we became lax and forgot about what a high-risk environment we were working in. Then he learned the subcontractor that hired him was pocketing the government hazard pay he was supposed to receive. He was being paid $15 an hour, but should have made $25. Japan's prime minister has tried to project a positive image of life returning to normal. He even ate fish from Fukushima's waters. But it has not persuaded Satoshi Kamata. He is one of 146,000 nuclear refugees. His home is still unsafe to live in, and he couldn't keep his job. Now he runs a small bar that's a hangout for decontamination workers. You say you're hearing a very different story about the cleanup. What are you hearing specifically? Basically, they can't recruit enough people, he said, so that's why they're plagued by delays. Still, the government insists that residents like Kamata will be resettled within 2.5 years. I'd like to say to those elite government guys, why don't you go try living in my town in 2.5 years, he told us. Tons of contaminated soil is stored temporarily in huge lots. Many towns here don't want it, so the waste, just like the residents, sits in limbo. Seth Doan, CBS News, Fukushima, Japan.
Several thousand miles to the east of Japan, and notice we have twin typhoons. A typhoon is just what we call a hurricane in this part of the world, and one of these is a super typhoon. Yeah, you got it. It's the one down here. Super typhoon meaning winds in excess of 150 miles per hour. This is super typhoon leaky. This is the second Category 5 equivalent storm in this part of the world in less than a week, so it's been a pretty active few weeks across this part of the basin. But the forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, which is the counterpart to the Hurricane Center, takes us off to the northwest and eventually accelerates it off to the northeast and out to sea, keeping it weak. So leaky is not expected to have any land impacts. But the other typhoon that we're looking at, this is Typhoon Francisco. This was a super typhoon and peaked out as a Category 5 equivalent storm. It has since weakened, now just barely hanging on to its typhoon status and causing some problems in parts of southern Japan. Okinawa, wind gusts past 30 miles per hour and some rainfall. But the main impacts we're expecting over the next few days is going to be from the heavy rain as it merges from a non-frontal with a non-frontal system. But some good news here is it's not going to be what we saw last week with WIFA. We expect a much weaker system, and the primary impact is just going to be heavy rainfall through the week. So that's what's going on in the Pacific.
The company in charge of the damaged Fukushima power plant on Japan's Pacific coast is facing another water problem. Workers are rushing to transfer tainted rainwater to underground storage pools as another powerful typhoon bears down on the Japanese archipelago. Typhoon Francisco is expected to hit the country's main island on the weekend. Officials from Tokyo Electric Power Company have received permission from the Nuclear Regulation Authority to use several underground pools. They have a storage capacity of about 9,000 tons. Managers stopped using several of the pools in April after leaks were discovered, but they now say they have no other option but to use 3 of the other pools. The company has been storing tainted rainwater in hundreds of above-ground tanks at the plant and in the basement in a turbine building, but they are now almost all full.
Weaker yen is encouraging more tourists to visit Japan. Ron Madsen joins me with the latest on that. Ron.
Yes, certainly seems that way, and we have been hearing a lot from the government about how it wants to get those traveler numbers up. So it's no doubt very happy to see that the nation welcomed the highest number of visitors for September. Officials at the Japan National Tourism Organization estimate more than 867,000 people came last month on business, vacation, or for other reasons. That's up nearly 32% from a year ago. The number of Taiwanese travelers shot up about 75%. And people from 5 Southeast Asian countries are finding it easier now to visit since visa requirements were relaxed. Travelers from Thailand rose 56%. There were almost 30% more visitors from mainland China, marking the first rise in a year. Group travel is becoming more popular. The officials say they'll step up promotional efforts ahead of the ski season and year-end holidays. They're aiming to reach the government's target to draw 10 million foreign travelers a year.
Japan's chefs could soon find their work endorsed by the United Nations. Members of a UNESCO committee have recommended that Japan's culinary arts be designated an intangible cultural heritage asset. UNESCO is expected to formalize the decision in December. Japan's Cultural Affairs Agency proposed adding the country's food culture to the list of heritage assets. Agency officials said the recipes, tableware, and other culinary arts are a fundamental part of Japanese culture. The officials say they hope UNESCO recognition will be a boost for businesses hit by concerns about food safety since the 2011 nuclear accident.
As members of the Japanese government, we should work hard to help people around the world understand that food from Fukushima, including marine products, are safe.
UNESCO currently recognizes 4 food cultures: French, Turkish, Mexican, and Mediterranean.
Chefs from around the globe head to Paris to test their skills against some of the world's best. One from Japan has become the first foreign trainee in a kitchen at the pinnacle of the city's culinary culture. NHK World's Magdalena Fournier has his story.
Harutomo Hagi landed in Paris in September. He is the owner chef of a French restaurant in Fukushima. He was about to become the first foreign trainee ever to cook in the residence of the French president, the Élysée Palace. The palace is the main stage where French leaders entertain visiting dignitaries. Pride is at stake with every meal. The role of the food is to convey the essence of French culture.
It's like a 3-star Michelin restaurant where you can't make a reservation. You can feel the weight of culture and tradition in the kitchen.
The palace's head chef, Bernard Vaution, was served some of France's best cuisine for 40 years. It's no exaggeration to say he is one of the hidden pillars of French diplomacy. Vaution visited Fukushima in February this year. He decided to get behind the prefecture's recovery and agreed to train a Japanese chef in Paris for 10 days.
I want to see the people from this region recover their confidence. That's why I agreed to accept this young chef as a trainee.
Hagi brought ingredients with him from Fukushima. Since the earthquake, he had wanted to revive interest in the foodstuff from his prefecture. He had already experimented with making jam together with farmers. Now he was ready to introduce his ingredients in the home of French cuisine.
This is good.
Fukushima became famous in unfortunate circumstances, but I think it will eventually find the limelight for other reasons. It depends on our attitude and how we act from now on.
A tasting of Hagi's dishes was held at a well-known Paris restaurant. He hoped the Fukushima factor would impress Paris's demanding gourmet. One chief ingredient is the Fukushima game fowl. It's the pride of the region, with firm flesh that issues a rich flavor as it chewed on. And in case of any doubts, dinners are assured the produce has passed radioactivity tests. The dish is ready to be served. The Fukushima fowl makes its French debut.
The combination of fowl and kelp is refreshing. I really like this.
If you consider this quality with the safety guaranteed, I'm sure people can start to eat food that's made in Fukushima with pleasure once more.
Everyone in Fukushima will be very happy to hear that people from Paris, the culinary capital, tasted the dish and said that it was delicious. From now on, I will work harder to draw attention to cooking ingredients from Fukushima.
Hagi's experience at the Élysée Palace may have been brief, but he hopes his efforts contributed to the recovery of his native prefecture. He also picked up some new skills and ideas in one of the world's top kitchens.
One more item before we leave you. An apple harvest with attitude. Image of famous personalities have been imprinted onto the surface of the fruit just for fun. About 1,200 specialty apples featuring 22 different images adorn an orchard in Aomori Prefecture, northern Japan. Popular themes include Japanese ideographs and faces of celebrities. Print stickers are affixed to the surface of individual fruit while still green. The apples are then allowed to ripen red in the sunlight. When the stickers are removed from the fruit, illustrations come alive. Apple lovers can choose from famous woodblock prints, the Japanese Prime Minister, the Mona Lisa, or even the French president.
The daytime and nighttime temperature difference is quite extreme, so this year the fruit has great color and taste. I hope many people enjoy these artistic apples.
Apples with artwork are popular gifts here in Japan. Some will be presented to French President Hollande.
Tonight, a special guest spoke to Cape Fear Community College students about nuclear energy. Margaret Harding has been in the industry for 30 years. She's now a consultant in the field and a professor for engineering at Iowa State University. She was called upon by NBC, Fox, CNN, and the New York Times in the aftermath of the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Harding says the tragedy helps us prepare for the future.
Industry looks at these kinds of things and says, what can we do to make sure a similar event doesn't happen? What could happen at our facilities, and how do we make sure that doesn't happen again? So we're always learning from these things. We're looking at how the Japanese responded to the event and saying, how could we have done better?
Harding says the recent reported violations at the Brunswick nuclear plant helps improve the plant's practices and that no one should be worried.
Some troubling security lapses at U.S. nuclear weapons facilities. New details now coming to light about officers who hold those codes that can launch nuclear missiles. Falling asleep on the job, leaving doors open. ABC's Martha Raddatz joins us now with the latest in a string of safety violations, a very damning string at that, Martha.
A string is right, Josh. This year alone, close to 20 officers suspended for earning a D grade on nuclear safety inspections. In 2007, nuclear warheads were accidentally flown from one base to another. But this morning, we are getting more details about this alarming failure to protect America's nuclear arsenal. Picture this: 4 Air Force officers who hold the launch keys to nuclear missiles, leaving open the blast door that's supposed to prevent terrorists from entering the capsule. This while another slept inside, which is allowed only if the door is closed. And who discovered this? In one case, it was a maintenance team. In another case, it was discovered by someone delivering food. To make matters worse, when it was discovered, one crew commander asked a junior officer to lie about the incident. The junior officer initially went along with the lie, but then backed off. 4 missile officers have been given a letter of reprimand, and 2 of them forfeiture of pay. But essentially, Josh, these are career-ending letters and another huge embarrassment for the Air Force.
And a measure of terrifying news. Martha, thank you for that.